Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the I Do Music podcast, and our goal and our mission is to empower and educate musicians and artists worldwide. And on today's episode, we sat down with writer, author, and host Maurice Garland discussing his contributions to publications like XXL and Ozone magazine, giving back to his community through scholarship and service, and publishing the art behind the tape. Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the I Do Music podcast, and I'm sitting down with writer, phenomenal writer, published author, personality, host, Maurice Garland. How are you?
What's up? I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for asking. I'm excited to have you here. You know, we actually, it's always exciting to have someone who does what I do because it's like, you know, you're not used to being asked the questions necessarily. You're used to asking the questions. So, and I'm a huge fan of your work. I have your book that you co-authored with
DJ Mars, Tide, Brill.
Yeah, and I worked with Brill. So that the art behind the tape, so we'll get into that and some other things. And just like, I'm a fan of reading your work. So, yeah, honored to have you here.
Yeah.
Now, Pittsburgh born, but raised in Decatur.
Yes.
On the east side.
Yes.
Because I'm like, every time, I didn't even know you weren't born here. I'm like, you sound...
You know, it's like, I mean, and I explained that because we were just talking about that before we started. Like, I was born in Pittsburgh, moved here when I was 4, so I'm pretty much from here.
Atlanta,
but I was explaining, like, you know, I can never deny my Pittsburgh side. I mean, hell, like, that's the household I was raised in. Both of my parents are definitely from there. You know, so all my baby pictures, I got Pittsburgh Steelers stuff on. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I can't be like, oh, no, I have nothing to do with that place. You know what I'm saying? But I was definitely, like, raised here. You know, I could tell you all the shortcuts to get places here than I can from Pittsburgh. You know what I'm saying? I obviously sound like I'm from here, not Pittsburgh. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, definitely, I was born in Pittsburgh, moved down here when I was 4. You know, my dad was... You know, I guess part of that first wave of folks that came to Atlanta for opportunity, you know what I'm saying, in the early 80s.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was definitely a part of that wave. And, you know, getting to be down here, like grow up in Atlanta at that time, you know, was interesting too. I mean, of course, like when you're a child, you don't know exactly what's going on, you know what I'm saying? But like comparing it to like, you know, the Atlanta that we live in now.
What was the difference?
I would say, well, I mean, obviously not as many people were here, you know what I'm saying? Because I always remember my dad telling me stuff like he was hesitant to move down here because, you know, and I'm sure he's only speaking for himself, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people share the same sentiment. Like, but when you're from the East, Midwest, maybe even the West Coast, and you're coming of age in the civil rights era, and you're seeing, oh, bro, they sicking dogs and water hoses on these folks.
That's true.
I ain't moving down there. You know what I'm saying? So he was actually hesitant to come down here because of like those images that he saw growing up. And, you know, and it's not like those people disappear.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like those actions might calm down, but those people don't just disappear. You know what I'm saying? So he was hesitant, but he actually came down here to visit because I had an uncle, like my mom's sister, she married my uncle who's from Birmingham. So he was already about this life, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But they were living here and he came out here to visit. And he was like, oh man, brothers down here pushing Beamers and Benzes, more than one at that.
Facts.
You know, y'all got like a whole neighborhood of black folks.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? With nice houses, not just one.
Right.
Okay, like I had this all wrong. You know what I'm saying? So he jumped at the chance to come down here, and you know we've been down here ever since, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
Very grateful.
Yeah, I mean, and I had this conversation on a previous podcast, but just there's a difference in being born and raised in Atlanta, or just raised in Atlanta. This is the only city that's quite like this, like the metropolis of black entrepreneurs and wealth that, you know, you don't see anywhere else.
And I was always taken aback by that because, you know, when you're growing up in it, like you're just, oh, this is just how life is. This is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not perfect, but you're like, this is...
I don't know nothing different.
Right. And I remember when we would have family members from, you know, Pittsburgh, 'cause I got family in Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Philly. So when they would come down to visit for holidays or summer vacations, they would be in awe about the simplest thing. I remember one time we took our uncle to like South DeKalb Mall. He was like, what? This is a black mall? This a mall for black folk? You know what I'm saying? Like, granted, it wasn't like, it wasn't called mall for black folk, but it's obvious like, this is the black mall. You know what I'm saying? but there was not a quote unquote black mall in
anywhere
Pittsburgh.
else,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no,
So I was
sure.
like, damn, this dude is impressed by South DeKalb Mall.
Right.
Like, we ain't even take him to Lenox, Greenbrier, you know what I'm saying? Northlake, none of that.
Right.
He's impressed by South DeKalb, where it's just sneakers. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So.
That's amazing. So tell me about where you got your affinity for writing, or like why did you go that route? Where is it? Can you date it back to like when you were younger, when you just had a love for writing, or like what were some of your interests coming up?
It's funny because like there's several entry points. I still have not come up with like the Twitter version of that answer, but I guess I could start with, looking back, like I always collected, magazines and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not going to sit here and act like I was just the biggest reader. Like I was not the guy that had my nose in the book all the time and all that, but I did have my nose in the magazine. Specifically like sports and music magazines.
What was your favorite magazine coming up?
I think my favorite was XXL. I mean, granted, there was dozens before that, whether it was like Source, Right On, all that, Jet, Ebony, all that kind of stuff. But I think XXL was my favorite because I think that was the first time I saw music that I actually enjoyed and listened to represented in a grander way. It wasn't like for instance, like when you're growing up here, you're listening to, Master P, Goody Mob and all them. They may get the corner page in the Source at the time, but XXL put Goody Mob on the cover.
Right.
They put Master P on it. Matter of fact, the first XXL cover, I'm saying it was a split cover. They had a Jay-Z cover and a Master P cover. Then the second cover, it was a D'Angelo and a Goody Mob cover. So to see the people that you listen to on the cover, like, oh man, this is the magazine for me. They putting the people that I listen to on the cover, giving them real coverage, not just a 3.5 rating and a one-page interview. Like they're really, putting on for them. So like that was one of my favorites growing up. But like I got into it, like that's what I was into. But then like when I went away to college, I went to Fort Valley State University. And again, that journey, like, I mean, I was not the school boy like that. So it's like, it was pretty much the thing. It was like, oh, how can I get out my mama house at 18 without having to work at AutoZone or Blockbuster? Oh, go to college? Cool. You know what I'm saying? Oh, this one's going to let me in? Cool. You know what I'm saying? So, get down there. And of course, freshman year is pretty much 13th grade because I'm just down there. You know what I'm saying? All my friends and cousins were like, you need to major in computers. And I'm like, all right, cool, computers. That's where the money at, computers. Then you start taking the classes. You're like, well, shit, I ain't like math in high school. I ain't about to like it here. So like I said, that freshman year was pretty much 13th grade, just me finding myself. And I noticed that there was a cat that stayed in my dorm. And this was sophomore year by this time, but like there was a cat that stayed in my dorm. He was always coming back to the room with like free posters, CDs, and all this stuff. I'm like, where you getting this stuff? And he was like, oh, I'm on the campus radio station. I was like, where? We got a campus radio station for real? And so I got interested in that. I was like, I like music. And so I got in there. I saw like they had like equipment. They had like, soundboards and turntables. I'm like, wow, we have a real radio station here. And so I was like, I think I want to do this. So, I learned the equipment. And at the time, I was still majoring in computers. And I think I changed it to like psychology at the time. And then finally, it finally clicked like, okay, I should be majoring in mass communications because hell, I wound up spending so much time in that mass comm building. Right. So that was kind of like my entryway into media, gotcha. Joining our campus radio station at Fort Valley State, did my thing down there, we built that station into a very reputable situation. Like we won a few like Black College Radio Awards and stuff like that. That's what's up. And, with mass comm though, like, at the time, I didn't realize mass comm was like a whole thing that included multiple things. TV, newspaper, PR. So it's like, I'm just doing this radio station thing. I'm DJing student center parties, and I'm going to be the next Greg Street. That's my path. I love it. And I remember like the year before I'm about to graduate, they start coming at me like, oh, well, you're doing your thing on the radio, but, this is mass comm, so that means you got to write for the paper, and you got to do something with the TV station. I was like, for real? You going to tell me this now? I'm halfway out. So so I dibbled and dabbled with the TV stuff. I learned how to use some camera equipment and stuff like that. I didn't really fall in love with that because, I didn't really want to be on camera like that, what I'm saying? Anyway, but the paper... I started off writing what I knew about. I was like, well, I got access to all these albums and stuff before they come out. I'll start writing music reviews. You know what I'm saying? That will satisfy my obligation so they can leave me alone. You know what I'm saying? So I started off writing music reviews for the school paper, and like I said, that was like more so just like so I can get out of here. But the editors, they were like, yo, you're pretty good at this. I mean, you never thought about trying it? I was like, nah, not really. You know, I'm just doing it for school, doing it for class. And, you know, I kept doing it, and, you know, I wound up like realizing like, well, I read music reviews all the time. I should have been doing, or at least adding this to my repertoire, and excuse me, but I was doing that, and then I started venturing out into other stuff. Started like, well, I like sports. I'll write about the football team and the basketball team. I'll try that. Okay, that's cool. And then at the time, it's funny, like we had, I guess you could call it a controversy at the time, but like we had like a new president come to the campus, and he pretty much just came through this changing everything. And a lot of people didn't take kindly to it because like, one, we're in the middle of Georgia. It's the country. And, you know, I mean, not to, you know, rag on anybody, but at the time, it's like, Fort Valley was known very much as an agricultural school. That was their bread and butter. So when this president, Kofi Lamote, shout out to him, he's a cool dude. He came here from like Medgar Evers and a couple other schools, and he came with the straight pro-black stuff. So he was pretty much like, we're starting the Africana Studies thing. We're doing this. He came through, changed the website. Like our school colors are blue and gold. He changed the website to red, black, and green.
I'm weak.
He put all these stock photos of folks with dashikis and dreadlocks. And folks were like, yo, man, you just changing the identity of the school? I mean, we black, but damn, bro, come on now. So
I mean, it's HBCU.
Yeah,
it's like,
you know what I'm saying?
it's
So
already
like,
black.
it was welcoming, but it's like, dude, you just can't come here and erase stuff that was here before you, bro.
Right.
And so when I saw that brewing, I was like, I'm about to write a story about that. You know what I'm saying? So I wrote about it, got input from like students about it, and it wasn't a glowing piece about the man and his actions, but it was the truth.
Right.
And I remember I was doing my thing at the radio station one day, and the lady that ran the place, Shirley Ellis, she was pretty much like, she wasn't a teacher, but she was the staff member that pretty much ran the mass comm department for the most part. And she was like, hey, the president called the office wanting to talk to you. And I was like, about what? About your story. I'm like, word? And I remember, like, he called me into his office. I'm sitting in this is the first time I've been in this presidential building. You know, this is a building you just walk past. You know what I'm saying? And I'm in this man's office. He's like, yeah, I read your article, you know, blah, 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 blah. He was telling me, you know, what he thought about it. And by the end of the week, everything that I complained about and the other people that I talked to claimed that stuff was changed. I was like, word? Like, I made an impact with something I wrote. So, like, that's something that kind of clicked too. Like, wow, you know what I'm saying? Because before, you're like, when you're writing reviews and stuff, you're voicing your opinion, you're expressing yourself, but to see that there's something that you wrote can really cause change and damn near immediately. I was like, wow, that's pretty damn powerful.
Pretty impactful,
you know what
for
I'm saying?
sure.
So,
and I also like the piece of you saying, you know, you wrote about the truth. You wrote about how, you know, your readers were feeling, and the people who, you know, you're writing about were feeling at the time. I think that's not only historic, but it's impactful because, you know, that's the difference between having an opinion, which we see a lot now, versus being a journalist, you know, and like reporting on what's actually happening. So I appreciate you saying that piece. Because I mean, in your opinion, because you play different roles, you are a host and personality, you're a writer, you're an author. As a writer, as a music journalist, like when you're reporting or documenting, like even music reviews, sports reviews, anything, what do you think that major difference, or how do you differentiate or like kind of put on different hats in a sense? Or do you feel...
We've been talking about like different, you know, practices and
like
stuff like
just
that,
as a journalist,
industries and all that.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, one, I try to play to my strengths.
True.
You know, I try to always, you know, focus on things that, one, I was interested in, because that's the fuel that you need when you're up at 1 o'clock in the morning trying to meet a deadline.
Facts.
You know, if I was like, granted, I'm interested in foreign affairs and politics, but that's not my passion. So it's like, you know, I was like, well, I don't think I'm going to stay up late writing about foreign affairs and politics.
Facts.
I will stay up late writing about this UGK album. I will stay up late writing about the sports. You know what I'm saying? So that was the thing that, you know, I always tried to focus on. So, you know, when you focus on that, you know, like, you're always going to keep finding more information to back up what you're saying, and then you're going to discover new ways to express those things. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, like, that's pretty much like how I would approach, you know, when I'm writing about music, sports, or, you know, other culture type things. Then I did dabble in writing about, politics and things like that for a minute, but it was still pretty much rooted in, things that I felt that I was well versed in. Like, I wasn't trying to write about what the Congressional Black Caucus was doing every day.
Right.
But I was going to write about, okay, there's a local politician doing this that impacts this community. You know what I'm saying? So I always try to work from a place where I was knowledgeable about it. Not to say that I wouldn't, read up on something else that I'm interested in, but that's how I was able to really flourish in multiple areas. I played to the strengths that I already had.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's also, I would just where I'm curious to know your opinion on how to, with writing features and things like reviews and music and entertainment specifically, we have our opinion about things, but as a writer, were you coming from a place of opinion, or are you coming from a place of just getting the information out there? How do you differentiate without having a bias? Because I mean, these are things that you love.
Yeah.
You writing about a UGK album, but
yeah, you gotta say if song 5 is whack, you have to do that. You know what I'm saying? You can't, because that's how you lose respect as a writer or a person in the media, period.
Credibility,
you lose your credibility when it becomes apparent that, oh man, they're very biased. They're not even gonna say nothing bad about it. It's not even about saying nothing bad. It's just telling the truth. You know what I'm saying? So it's that's ground zero right there. But the way I would approach it is, for reviews, I think I have a pretty good ear for it, you know what I'm saying? So it's I would tell the truth. I would and I would always try to keep things factual. It's I would start off maybe mentioning something okay, this song sounds like that. Whether it's because it's sampled or it's just it sounds just like that. You know what I'm saying? Or focus on the content. Well, this is the umpteenth song on the album where they're talking about the same thing. So I'm not lying. It's bro, they were rapping about dope for 10 straight songs. I mean, this is what they doing. You know what I'm saying? I would try to focus on the mechanics of the craft, where it's okay, they switched up the flow a little bit on this one. Cool, you know what I'm saying? And try to focus on those things instead of getting too personal. I never use words whack, trash, garbage. You know what I'm saying? I would use other words, which I could probably share another story about with later, choice words on certain things. And then with writing features, I would always try to focus on that person's story. Whoever's reading the article about the person that I'm writing about, they may like how I write, but they're not reading it because I wrote it. They're reading it because they're interested in that person.
Topic, right,
you know what I'm saying? That topic, that person. So I'll try to keep it about them. If there was a specific thing that I could zone in on, I would just try to, zone in on that, because it's a trip. Somebody posted an article that I forgot I wrote years ago. It was a feature on Webby in XXL a long time ago. And, I hadn't seen that article since it got printed. You know what I'm saying? And I happened to read it. I was wow, that was a cool article. I was focusing on him transitioning from being, just, a cat that had a hit record with Gimme That, who was fresh out the street, going into his second album where he's kind of a budding rap star and talking about wow, how was he adjusting to this? Because at the time, he was notorious for giving terrible interviews, cussing out fans, you know what I'm saying, just being a very just unapproachable person. So I was focusing on that transition, so I talked to him and people around him. So I made the story about that moment in time, you know what I'm saying? So, which is what used to help me a lot as a writer too. Technically they're called angles and all that stuff, angles or whatever. But I would always try to focus on a particular moment in time. Okay, what is this person going through right now?
Right.
What are they transitioning through? What did they just get over? What are they about to embark on? You know what I'm saying? So I would try to focus on those things. When you do that, that's a good way of keeping your opinion out of it, because you're focusing on that person.
And the relevance, to what people care to read. I think that's great. I wanted to ask you, okay, so you've written for previously Black Enterprise, actually gone on to write for a magazine you were inspired by, XXL, Complex, The Source, Creative Loafing here in Atlanta, and hiphopwired.com. And those are very range. But one thing that I noticed that was consistent is obviously our culture, really reporting and writing about our culture. Why was that something significant to you? Obviously, your experiences, right? But, just as writers and, wanting to get opportunities, sometimes you'll see people dibble and dabble in a lot of different things. For you and your journey, it seems like you've always been very consistent about what you push out and why you push that out, even beyond the writing, like the books, the hip hop trivia, the events, you know what I mean? Everything is for the community, by the community. Why is that a significant thing for you to, really shape your career like that?
Twofold, going back to just playing to the strengths and interests, because those are going to be the things that motivate you at those times where it's like, damn, check taking hella long to get here. Damn, check ain't come. You know what I'm saying? Or damn, like, check ain't as big as I thought it was. Like, so it's like when you're motivated, by, like, oh, this is genuinely what I love, what I'm passionate about, what I'm interested in. That's going to be your motivation through the tough times. And then twofold, I mean, can't lie, like, some of it is inspired by seeing it done the wrong way by the wrong people. You know what I'm saying? And seeing how fast a lie or misinformation or just ill-mannered information gets out. Like, seeing how fast it was spread, and you're like, damn, bro, like, somebody got to be here to counter that. You know what I'm saying? I didn't always think it was me, but, a few friends of mine, what I'm saying, like, namely, like I remember I had a conversation with Killer Mike one time, and like, I don't want to get into all the name drop stuff, but this was a pivotal moment in my life and career where, one time, like, something got out, and it wasn't even about him. It was just like, there was just a lot of misinformation flying out about the city at the time from various outlets, and there was nothing countering it. And he was like, bro, like, nigga, we need folks like you out here to counter this bullshit, bro. Like, what are you doing? And I was still, doing me. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't necessarily thinking, oh, it's my responsibility. I was just doing me. You know what I'm saying? But when I saw that, damn, that is true. There is so much, misinformation. There's so much being overlooked and not talked about. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, damn, I guess I could, try to do that, like, fill that role. So, like, those are the two things that kind of inspired me. One, playing to my strength and my own interest, and two, seeing how many people were doing it just wrong. Right. You know what I'm saying? It was like, 'cause it would get under my skin, especially it was like, bro, I was there. That did not happen.
Yeah.
Why did you say that?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Do you recall, or can you recall, the first time that you saw your name, your byline, and like, printed in a magazine or printed an article somewhere? What was that moment for you? How did you feel?
We talking about like as far as like the first time, or the first time it was like, ooh.
Yeah, like the first major byline, I guess.
I think it might have been Vibe magazine. Cause I had wrote for magazines before that. I wrote for Ozone magazine. Shout out to Julia. Yeah. And that was a wild time. I don't want to overlook that either. Cause writing for Ozone,
had Julia here, on the podcast too.
Writing for Ozone is a place that I really grew into my own as well. Cause I mean, we focused on the thing that I absolutely love, which was Southern hip hop. You know what I'm saying? So like, I wrote all my first cover stories there. You know what I'm saying? So I'll say there's been a few wild moments, but I don't even want to skip over Ozone at all.
How did you connect with Ozone?
How did we connect?
How did you connect at that time as a writer in general? Like, what was that to get a gig, or to get, like, were you sending out samples? You have a portfolio? Like, how did that work?
It was a little bit of both. I'm trying to remember. How did me and Julia meet and everybody?
She was out here in the street.
I think my name was just out there.
True.
And it might have been a situation where, matter of fact, because we're being recorded. I don't want to just say the wrong thing.
No, it's okay.
Be lying to folk. But I think it was a situation where a friend of mine, he was not available to write the story. And he was like, yo, I'm going to tell Julia that you're interested.
Gotcha.
I think it'd be a good look for you.
Gotcha.
Matter of fact, I think it might have been my business partner, Brandon Peters, that did that.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying? Because he was busy at the time working at XXL or doing something else. And he was like, I think this would be a good look for you. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be a cover story on Pastor Troy. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was my introduction to Julia and Ozone, writing that cover story on Pastor Troy. You know what I'm saying? So that was a big moment. I was like, wow, I wrote a cover story. You know what I'm saying? Right. And it's on Troy, dude, that I already know all the music. Right. This is tight. This is cool. You know what I'm saying? So that was one of the big moments. Another big moment was the first time that I was published in Vibe magazine, because that was the first time that they put like my face and bio on the contributor page.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
Who did I remember Jamie Foxx was on the cover. I forget who I wrote about. Mm-hmm. I just remember Jamie Foxx was on the cover, and I think it was around the time like Ray was coming out and all that stuff, or he might have came out with that Unpredictable album, something like that.
Yeah,
but,
Classic, by the way.
Yeah. So it's like, that was so I turned in the story, and then they're like, hey, can you send us a picture and a bio? Like, shit, for what? We're going to put you on the contributor page. Like, for real? What, me? You know what I'm saying? So I just, and I was like, God, it's crazy to bring up. I was working at Rolling Out at the time. You know what I'm saying? Which, there was a lot of wild moments there. I don't even want to skip it. That was my first job coming out of school, Rolling Out. Yep. And
was that early on? Like, was it just were they just getting started? I don't know when they've been around.
This was they had been around since like the late '90s already. So I think there was like a 5-year-old company.
Got you.
By the time I joined,
Got
you know what I'm saying? But yeah, there was definitely a lot of wild moments there because that was my first time, seeing my name getting printed and all that kind of stuff, like on a national scale. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, like they put my face and stuff in the Vibe magazine. I was like, wow, like I'm in the magazine. Not just my name, like me. I'm in there. Damn, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? So that was a cool little moment too. You know what I'm saying?
Can you recall like one of your favorite stories that you've written over the years? I'm sure there are plenty, but
yeah,
like
so there's a couple. One that always sticks out. When I was writing for Ozone magazine, there was a mayor of Jackson, Mississippi named Frank Melton, right? Dude, like, there needs to be a movie about this dude, like, because people have actually reached out to me because of the article that I wrote, like, yo, man, this should need to be a screenplay. But it was a mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, Frank Melton. This dude had 1 foot in the mayor's office, 1 foot and both hands in the street.
Really?
You know what I'm saying? It's like a lot of people thought that he was the biggest dope boy in Jackson. A lot of folks thought, like there was a lot being said about this dude. You know what I'm saying? And an opportunity came about to tell the story. And at first, we were just going to be talking to like some of the rappers in the community that had been affected by his actions. You know what I'm saying? But then, because matter of fact, one of his right-hand men was Kamikaze, the dude that used to be in Crooked Letters with David Banner. You know what I'm saying? So we were just going to talk to folks like him, a couple of other folks from the community. And I think I asked Kamikaze one day, I was like, yo, do you think I could talk to dude? I mean, hell, we talking all this shit about him. Like, can I talk to him? And he's like, I don't know, man. You don't do interviews like that. I'll see. But he made it happen.
Wow.
And I was able to talk to this dude and ask him questions like, yo, so they're saying you're the one selling all the dope in Jackson, Mississippi. Is this you? No. Well, okay. He was doing, damn, this dude was wild. He was doing stuff like, he would be the ones like kicking in the doors his damn self. You know what I'm saying? he would get the posse and just be kicking in the doors.
Why have I never heard of Frank Nelson?
And then, then some cats would get arrested. All of a sudden, they back out super fast. And like, man, how they back out so fast? Shit, they working for Frank now.
Oh, goodness.
You know what I'm saying? Like Frank.
This is a whole movie for sure.
It is. And then like, somehow he was cool with Ray J, and they were throwing pool parties at the. It was a wild ass story. You know what I'm saying? And that was one of my favorite stories because like one, there was the hip-hop element to it because we were talking to local artists who had been impacted by his actions.
Right.
And then two, there was the just, like the news and politics element to it where it's like I'm talking to him about, policies that he's passed and actions that he's taken and how he pretty much was like running a whole city top to bottom as the mayor. Then like he owned I think he owned a TV or a radio station too in Jackson, so he would use that to call out people like, I know you're selling dope out there on MLK and we coming to get you. You know what I'm saying? And then like he would buy like billboards and put these dudes' faces on the billboards. Like,
this is crazy.
He was a wild boy, and it's like, he passed away a few years ago, but man, like that story definitely sticks out because, people still actually reach out sometimes, because, the PDF might float around on the internet or something. Yeah. Somebody might reach out every once in a while, like, yo, man, like, blah, 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 Frank Melton. And then like every time I meet somebody from Mississippi or Jackson, I like, hey, man, I interviewed Frank. I'm like, what? You?
Frank Melton.
You interviewed Frank? He talked to you? He told you that? You know what I'm saying? So that definitely sticks out. Another story that sticks out, I wrote for this one website. They're not around anymore, but I loved writing for them. It was a black-owned website. It was called like Loop 21 or something like that. And it was like, it focused, that was when I was like dabbling into writing about politics and policy and stuff. Just, things that didn't really have anything to do with music. And I wrote a story about black atheists. And that was pretty interesting.
I think I came across that before in your repertoire of articles.
I was like, wow, like this is interesting. And it's just different hearing, perspectives from black, because that's a community that you never hear from. And you would hear them say stuff like, oh, man, I go to church every Sunday for the music. I don't believe what they saying.
Not for the music.
But I go to church every Sunday just to hear the music. As soon as they stop singing, I leave. You know what I'm saying? And then, some people, they were telling their stories about, yeah, well, I decided I was atheist when, I came out to my mom when I was in high school, and she hit me with the Bible. I literally slapped me with the Bible and said, not in my house. I'm like, damn, if that's what religion's about, this ain't for me. You know what I'm saying? So, like, that was interesting, talking to that community of people, because it's a trip. Because I started off just talking to 3, and then word spread like, hey, somebody's doing a story about us. Right. And it's like, I started getting all kind of tweets and Facebook messages like, hey, talk to me, interview me, talk to me. So it's like, I think I interviewed damn near like 50% of the black atheist population in America from that story.
And that's cool that, you talk about social media, like utilizing and like leveraging your social media to like really pull from the community. That's dope. But tell me how the process of like print to digital, like how you were able to transition from, or how the industry was transitioning from print to digital. You
know what? Like, when I was making that transition, I didn't necessarily realize that I was making a transition.
I don't think anyone...
Because, like, I was still writing for, like, rolling out Ozone, XSL, all them. So, like, that's when print was still popping. And I was on MySpace like everybody else. And I started using the blog feature on MySpace. And originally, I was using that feature on MySpace to write articles that I couldn't get published anywhere or something like that. Say
just
for
like
instance,
personally.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So like I remember I would write a lot of stories that I wanted to get published at Rolling Out, because that's where I was working at. But they would be like, we don't really have space for that story, and I don't think anybody in the audience will care about that particular story. So I was like, shit, I'm just gonna start putting it on my MySpace blog. And the stuff I was posting on there started gaining traction. And then, so I started off doing that kind of stuff. And then every once in a while I would write like something like personal and funny or whatever. But I was using that MySpace blog feature to like post things that, I thought would be good ideas, but, no publishers wanted to pick up on. So, I was getting used to, like, okay, so this is what digital publication feels like. It gets out there like in an instant, and people instantly give you feedback and they instantly share it. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, all right, cool. And then after that, I started, dabbling with, Blogger and WordPress and stuff like that, because, again, I would use those platforms to publish things where it's like, dang, I kind of want to get this out right now. If I wait for this paper or magazine to do it, this story going to be old. Because, at the time, it's and I think it may still take, it was taking like 3 months to get a magazine together. Like, you got to, do the stories, do the edits, then they got to lay it out and do all that kind of stuff. So, like, magazines would take like 2-3 months to come out. So, like, if I got something that I want to say right now, or that I think is like pressing right now, I'm like, shit, I can just put this on WordPress or Blogger, and it's out there. You know what I'm saying? So like, I didn't realize I was making the transition when I was doing it, but like when I did it, I was like, wow, that's crazy. So like when things did go digital, I wasn't necessarily like caught like a reindeer in headlights, like, oh damn, what happened?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It was a smooth transition.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you too, just like your style of writing. When you talked about like your choice of diction, your choice of words, what's that process like for you? Just like having an idea, having an angle on a story, and then like, I think the hardest part is just like writing. Like writers are like, yeah, like I'm a writer, but I just got to do it. You know what I mean? So what does that look like for you? And like, how do you utilize words to really make it your own?
I pretty much try to do most of my writing like a conversational style. Because, excuse me, I always found it difficult when I would try to write in a way that I didn't talk. You know what I'm saying? Because it's pretty much the same thing. Like, granted, I'm not saying, no, I'm saying all that, saying every other word and like that. But it's like, it would be difficult where it's like, yo, like, I don't sound like that.
Right.
Why am I writing like that? Who am I trying to impress? So I was like, let me just write it out the same way that I would say it to a person. You know what I'm saying? Of course, you add different elements of structure to it, but it's like, I started focusing on that.
Right.
Because I mean, I wouldn't talk about, I wouldn't talk about UGK keep coming out here, but I wouldn't talk about a Pimp C song and try to write like it's a damn, doctor thesis, you know what I'm saying?
Like it's Shakespeare.
Right, you know what I'm saying? Which is cool, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's like, I was like, no, let me just write about this the way that I would say it. You know what I'm saying? That way, you can put all the sounds and smells and sights and all that kind of stuff and all the feelings into the writing. You know what I'm saying? So I just always try to focus on saying it, like writing it the way that I would say it. Mm-hmm. And the words, come to you. Then, of course, as you read, you might come across a new word here and there, be like, oh man, that shit fit.
I like that word.
I like the way that word sounds and feels. I'm gonna wait for the perfect moment to throw that in there. You know what I'm saying? Or sometimes the word might come where it's like I said, you don't want to just rely on words like garbage, trash, whack. You know what I'm saying? You find other ways of it's. We laugh. I like telling this story. Like it was so long ago, but I remember again XXL. So the Purple Ribbon All-Star album had came out, and I had a great relationship with everybody over there. Everybody from Tamiko Hope, the publicist, you know what I'm saying, to Big Boy himself, Killer Mike, Bubba Sparks, Sleepy, like everybody that was on the label. Everybody was cool. Regina Davenport was working over there. Everybody had a great relationship with them. So the album comes out. XXL asked me to write a review about it, and wrote the review. And there was one particular song on there by, shout out to Black on C-Bone, you know what I'm saying? Got that little brother Nate from Concrete. And I said something like, I didn't say the song was terrible or nothing. I was like, this song sounds like a squandered opportunity.
Not a squandered opportunity.
And it got printed, and so the review comes out on newsstands the same day as the album release party, which, that's what happens. Like, that's how they're supposed to time this stuff. So comes out, and I get a call from Tamiko. She's like, hey, the article came out. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm not thinking no. It's like, you still coming to the party tonight? I'm like, yep. She's like, well, okay, well, not everybody mad. Not everybody happy about the article. You know what I'm saying? Some folks had stuff to say about it, so I'm just letting you know. And I was like, all right. You know what I'm saying? So I get there to the party, and it's a trip because, I could feel a lot of the eyes like, oh, there he is. You know what I'm saying? So, but I'm not thinking nothing. I'm like, oh, whatever. And so, I end up talking to Big Boy. He was like, hey, man, I want to talk to you about that article. And I was like, what's up? He's like, oh, no, that shit fine. I'm cool with it. Not everybody like that shit, though. You know what I'm saying? You ain't say nothing about me. You know what I'm saying? But shit. Concrete, they mad as hell. They asked me, man, what the fuck he talking about squandered opportunity? What the fuck squandered mean? And I told them niggas, man, you need to look that shit up. And so
this is like real time. I already know.
And so I was like, okay. And so then, I leave his little quarters of the office or whatever. I go back out in the party, and then them dudes spotted me like, Maurice Garland, what's up, dude? You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, what's going on? Like, bro, we read that shit you wrote about bro. The fuck that shit talking? It's like, hey, man. And I was telling them, hey, bro, song wasn't that good. Like, but yeah, nigga, what the fuck squandered mean, nigga? The fuck you talking about, bro?
Talk about squandered.
So I'm just telling them why I said what I said. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't no beef. You know what I'm saying? Nothing like that. Far from that. But it was just a trip, just like damn, yeah.
Actually being approached about your words.
Right. Which and that wasn't the first or last time, I've definitely got, approached about things I said, and it's like I always felt comfortable talking about, because it's like I always came from a place of truth. Like I didn't, and that's the thing too, is like, 'cause this is what I tell, because I mentor teenagers full time now, teaching them how to write and produce content. Mm-hmm. And one thing I always tell them, like, if you want to say things about how something feels, sounds, whatever, don't get personal with it. Don't turn it into like a personal attack, because that's when somebody's going to get mad and feel like, oh, this is how I'm about to approach you because you made this personal. Like, if you're just keeping it, hey, man, this song don't sound good.
Right.
Cool. But if you get into the, I don't think this song sounds good because I heard he going through shit with his baby mama, and he got a drug problem, and he broke, and he this. That's when it becomes personal. Too personal. You know what I'm saying? So, just keep it about the thing, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get into a few things. I saw recently y'all had like an Arts, Beats, and Lyrics. It's celebrating, I can't remember if it was an anniversary or something. Mm-hmm. You had a conversation around that, but also just like what you've done outside of the writing space, which is contribute to like these other platforms or start like events like the Hip Hop Trivia. Mm-hmm. You seem like you have your hands in a few different things, not just writing. Mm-hmm. So, let's first start with being continuous to do radio and continue to do like an online radio show with like Day One ABL Radio. How long have you been doing that? Because it's
so we were early adopters. So like ABL Radio it's not on the ABL Radio anymore.
Oh, it's not.
You know what I'm saying? It's like that's where we definitely started out at. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to homie Jabari Graham, because like hell, like, it was pretty much like serendipitous. It was like, you know, me and Brandon, like Brandon came up with the idea to want to do a podcast, and Jabari came across some equipment from his uncle, you know what I'm saying? Because his uncle used to have a radio station, and he just had all this equipment, and, you know, he wound up getting a space downtown and built ABL Radio out of it. So, like, so we were definitely early adopters. Let's see, it might have been 2013, 14, you know what I'm saying? So, like, we were definitely early adopters as far as, you know, doing it here in the city of Atlanta. You know what I'm saying? You definitely had, you know, like your Combat Jacks and all that stuff before that. And then even here in Atlanta, too, like, I think we were the first ones to kind of, like, focus on what we were doing, because you definitely had other, like, podcasts that were here that were like talking about like food or just, you know, other neighborhood things. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so like we did that. And I'm sorry.
And what's the concept of the show, Day One?
Yeah, so the concept is pretty much like, you know, me and Brandon both come from, you know, music writing and media backgrounds. So we basically just kind of want to like bring the stories that we were writing to the podcast form. You know what I'm saying? And then also it gave us an opportunity to kind of like branch out on stuff too, because like we still don't only talk to just musicians. Like we talk to Olympic athletes, activists. We had a gun expert on there a couple weeks ago, you know what I'm saying? So like we talked to like a lot of different people, you know, to kind of like, you know, one, like I wouldn't say that we're like a black show or nothing like that, but you know, we definitely like focus on our audience with certain things, you know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, it started off as a thing where it's like, yo, man, like, we enjoy listening to podcasts, but we also don't hear these things talked about or these people talk to. Right. You know what I'm saying?
The story, like the hidden stories, the stories that we don't get to hear often, for sure. I think that's important. Now, in 2014, we talked about it briefly, but you co-authored the art behind the tape. I actually have it. I got that from Brill, and it's the first to really chronicle hip-hop history, culture, and, like, mixtapes are huge. Like, everybody that I've talked to on this podcast, that's, like, one of the things that we talked about. We talked to not too long ago. Mixtapes, that era of, you know, it's different now. It's not necessarily a tape. You know, you got EPs, everything's digital. But why was that important for you to really, like, put that in a book and, like, or you and the people that you...
Yeah, because I got shout to Mars. It's like, that was Mars' baby for some years, because, like, that's, like, maybe like the second or third iteration of that idea. Like he had that idea years ago.
Got you.
And we actually came together to work on the first one. It just didn't work out. You know what I'm saying? But like fortunately, like, you know, years later, it reappeared in the form that you have. But that was Mars' baby. But again, like it was again about, you know, stories that weren't being told. Because I mean, you know, you have so many rap books or hip hop culture books where it's like it may be focused on a particular artist, or a particular era, or a particular record label, or a particular photographer, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, for mixtape history to kind of just not be talked about in that way, it's like, dang, why not? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you know, granted, you know, some people would say, well, I mean, you know, mixtapes were illegal. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, that was definitely a thing too. Like, how you gonna make a book about a whole illegal underground, you know what I'm saying, industry or whatever, you know what I'm saying? You know, and then like, to some, taking on something like that can be intimidating too, because it's like, you know, with albums and photographs and stuff, all that stuff can pretty much be traced back fairly easily. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I can find out when this came out or when this happened. You know, mixtapes, it's like, you know, we lose mixtapes all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, you lose those things. You lose the cover, you lose the CD, like, you don't remember where you got it from or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, taking on a challenge like that can be daunting too, but, you know, I'm glad that everybody, you know, like, hunkered down. And we got a lot of support from the community too. Like, that was not just 4 people doing that. Like, a lot of people, when they caught wind of it through, you know, Kickstarter or other promotions they were doing, they were like, yo, man, I got a whole closet full of stuff. Like, y'all want to use some of my library?
Got you.
You know what I'm saying? So it was definitely a community effort. And I think that was my favorite part of the experience, seeing how so many people wanted to, you know, contribute to it. Because it's one thing when you see somebody doing it, like, oh, okay, I'll just get it when it come out. But you have folks that are like, I think I can help y'all out.
That's tight.
You know what I'm saying? And you don't have to even, like, give me nothing for it. Like, I don't want no clout or anything. I just really want to see, yo, I have this artifact. are you interested in talking about that artifact?
Right,
You know what I'm saying?
just that it was documented.
Yeah.
I think that's important too, just being able to document a time in history,
Right.
So I thank you for that, because now I have it and I'll be learning everything from there. I wanted to also discuss, just the what you're doing now, which is like giving back once again to those that are coming up and inspiring to be where you've been able to go. And one thing that I didn't discuss when we were talking about Fort Valley is that you co-founded a scholarship. Is that correct?
Yeah.
The Pinky Ross Scholarship Fund. And tell us about that and like why that was important for you to do for your school.
Yeah, so Pinky Ross is the grandmother of one of my close friends, Demetrius Davis. We both, he's a couple years older than me, but we both graduated from Redan High School, and we both graduated from Fort Valley State University. And, there was a group of friends, me, him, my homeboy Billy, Tony, and my cousin Seneca. Demetrius wanted to find a way to give back to, to give back. So he was he approached us with the idea of hey man, let's create a scholarship where we create a scholarship that's specifically, because this is how it started out. It was going to be specifically for students who were graduating from our alma mater, Redan High School, and going to Fort Valley State University. We wanted to help that out specifically,
Gotcha.
which, because a lot of times, so many people want to give back. And it's you should start off as specific as possible. You know what I'm saying? Because if you try to start off helping the world, you're going to get discouraged. Oh, damn, I ain't helping the world. You know what I'm saying? But if you can say, no, we helped one person out in a very good way. We found them and helped them. So, so we wanted to do that first. We want to start off with, okay, let's, call the high school counselors, do our research and see if they know a student that's deserving of it that is graduating from our alma mater and also attending our college alma mater. And so, we wanted to do that because, we all experienced what it was like, going to college with damn near no help, you know what I'm saying? Because, a lot of folks, they were, especially for me, it's I was the first person, one of, me and my cousin, who went to Tennessee State, but, I was pretty much one of the first people in our college, people in my family to go to college. So it's everybody love you, but they ain't really got no money and advice for you.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
They're oh, wow,
that's
congratulations,
cool.
you going. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we wanted to help out in that kind of way. So we've been doing that for a few years now. And it's pretty good. We've expanded it, you know what I'm saying? Because, we realized, okay, that is very niche and it's not going to be guaranteed. We find that student all the time. So
yeah.
The last couple of years, we've been helping students that did go to Redan that are going to a HBCU.
Nice.
Or a kid that's graduating from any Atlanta area school that's going to Fort Valley.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's dope. Me and my friends have done something similar with at Mays. So I when I heard that, I was like, that's tight. Really giving back to where your community directly.
Right.
Okay, so we're running a little low on time. So I just want to ask you one thing that I think was important that I've noticed recently with young writers. We're obviously living in a very strange time right now, and people are losing their jobs, but specifically Black writers are speaking out about their experiences with these publications that are not necessarily ours, right? Have you ever considered, or did you ever think of or is there anything that exists of a writers coalition or anything to protect writers in those spaces, specifically Black writers in those spaces where we're contributing to our culture, but for a publication that doesn't necessarily care,
right.
Or have a concern for the writer, to protect the writer?
Protect, I don't think there's anything that protects. Yeah. There's definitely things out there like your local MABJs and all that kind of stuff and other groups that promote and maybe provide and inform.
Do you think it's a necessary thing to have? To
protect? Yeah. Because when you look at other places, everybody else got some kind of protection, you know what I'm saying? But the thing about it is, again, you're going to have to focus on very specific, tangible things too. It can't necessarily be I feel like this happened, and I feel like that. You know what I'm saying? Because whoever you're trying to argue against, they go, well, we felt like this. You know what I'm saying? So it's it would have to be very tangible, specific things, and that's probably going to be a lot of individual information too. Because everybody doesn't have the same story. The person that wrote something for Vogue is not going to have the same situation as somebody that wrote for the source.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
right.
They might have both been done wrong or felt wrong, but it's like it might be two totally different things. So it's about finding ways to like make those individual issues, kind of like become like under one umbrella where it's like, okay, well, this is the task at hand. We want to make sure that Black writers are looked out in this way. And also a lot of that comes to like relying on each other too. You know what I'm saying? Because like you said, like these are platforms and outlets that we don't own, but it's like that don't mean that we can't all link up and, provide and protect for each other. You know what I'm saying? Like the same way that I got in the game, like it was Brandon looking at it, yo, I can't do this. Do you want to try it? You know what I'm saying? So like being able to share information too. I mean, that's key. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, but to protect, I don't know if anything like that exists, but I think before we get into protection, like we need to do I think we're doing a decent job, but continue to do a good job of like just sharing the information. Sharing the opportunities and things like that. You know what I'm saying? So.
I agree. Absolutely. Well, I didn't even get into this as well, but like, you've been able to balance your professional career as well as your personal life too. I see you're very active with the Runners Club out here, Movers and Pacers, maintaining that lifestyle, and also your family. Like, you have been able to do that. Has that been difficult for you to find that balance, or does your family kind of understand or support, I'm sure they support it. But.
I wouldn't say that it's been difficult to balance, because, I mean, I haven't found it difficult, like, because I decided what was going to be prioritized at different times. So that's a key thing. Like, you got to be able to be in a space where you just straight up decide what is going to be the priority that particular moment, hour, day, month, whatever. You know what I'm saying? You have to be able to like decide what's going to be the priority. So like arriving at a place where I was able to like decide on things made it not difficult. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So like I can't say that it's been like difficult, like balancing things, because like, a few years ago, like I arrived at a place where it's like, okay, self-care is a priority.
Yeah.
So if that means saying no to somebody, guess what? They getting told no.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or they getting told, hey, you gotta wait. You know what I'm saying? So like that's just I wouldn't say it's been difficult, because I decided like what were going to be the priorities. You know what I'm saying? So when I decided, you know what? My health is going to be a priority. My mental health is going to be a priority. You know what I'm saying? My peace is going to be a priority. You know what I'm saying? Which is went into like, why I don't move in certain spaces anymore, and I don't really offer thoughts on certain kinds of things anymore. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, well, that could be somebody else's space. You know what I'm saying? Because that's one of the reasons why I love working where I work at now. Like I work at this nonprofit Vox ATL, where it's like they got all the business in the world talking about Little Pump. I do not. You know what I'm saying?
That's
so
true.
It's like I enjoy helping them get their voice out about the things that they care about, instead of me trying to be like, oh, okay, man, I got to find something to say about Lil Pump.
See, I appreciate you saying that. I'm really happy you said that. And Vox ATL, shout out to Vox ATL for being, or Vox, is it Teen Communications, for being a platform, because that's been around for a while, and it's helped a lot of my friends go on to do really amazing things in media and journalism. So shout out to what you're doing for those kids. Appreciate you.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Dang, Maurice, there's so many things that I wanted to talk about, but I just want to shout out again the Hip Hop Trivia. That's like a really dope event space that you guys have continued to do. Where are y'all doing that now?
Zoom.
It's over Zoom now.
Yeah, we're doing it on Zoom. I
just saw the flyers. I'm like, are they really meeting up?
Yeah. We started doing it on Zoom when all the quarantine happened. You know what I'm saying? And it's been great. It's been great, because we always did it like at local bars and stuff, and we'd always get a great turnout. But transitioning to Zoom is like, wow, so now the person that lived in California that could never come, they get to check in.
That's true.
The person that's probably raising 3 kids and just like, I just can't leave the house at Wednesday night like that.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
They can check in. So like, it's been cool seeing so many different kinds of people check in too. But yeah, we've been doing it on Zoom for like the last 3 months, and it's been pretty tight. We're enjoying it. It's tight. Like, because at first we were just going to try it monthly, but then folks like, man, please do this next week. I need something to do. Please do this next week. It's weekly now. You know what I'm saying?
That's
so
awesome.
Like, it's cool. It's cool.
That's awesome. Congrats on everything, man. I'm really, like I said, I'm a fan of your work and what you're doing. So thank you for putting on to the city.
Yeah.
Tell them where they can find you on social media.
What? You know what? You can find me on the. I was off social media for like 3 years.
Yeah.
Up until quarantine, I was like, shit. I guess I got to check in with the world and see what's going on somehow. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, Maurice Garland on Instagram. You know what I'm saying?
Nice.
Just my name, MauriceGarland on Instagram.
Nice. Thank you. And as always, you guys can find this podcast at IDM Podcast on social media, as well as myself on all social media platforms at Sammy Approved. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Sonically superior.